Hey everyone, what's going on? Eric here. Hope you're all doing good today. Right now we're going to review a scale. So before we do that, I'd like you all to just take a quick second to give me a like, maybe give me a comment, something like, I love coffee, I love scales, I love Eric, I don't know. Anyway, let's just get back into it. We're going to do that, and then we're going to maybe subscribe. All right, so. MHW-3BOMBER. It's a brand, shows up a lot on Amazon, shows up on Instagram and TikTok feeds. It is a coffee brand. They make a lot of things, little coffee grooming tools, like this is one of theirs here. This is their really fancy little cute coffee groomer. They make scales, they make a few other accessories. They have a kettle out there. I think they have a grinder that they are experimenting with. But anyway, what we're talking about today is their coffee scale, espresso scale. Now, if you're building your home espresso bar, or if you're getting into coffee at home, the first optional accessory you're going to want to get is a scale. You have your espresso machine, of course, you have your grinder. These are not optional accessories. These are the necessities. But after that, you're going to start thinking about tampers, distribution tools, WDT tools, all sorts of things, baskets, whatever. A lot of people who are new to espresso, a lot of people who are getting into espresso are looking for some kind of magic formula. They often ask, like, what are your settings? What should the grind setting be at? How long should I run my shots? And unfortunately, espresso is really dynamic. Even if you get the same coffee every single time, you're going to have to make little adjustments on how your coffee is going to run to get that espresso to taste just right. There's all sorts of factors that affect how the espresso is going to be flowing. Things like the grind size, of course, of your grinder, how fresh the coffee is off of the roast, the humidity even. So these are all factors that are going to keep you from finding some magical formula that are going to keep things consistently. And even if you are using the same coffee every single time, roast by roast, it's going to change ever so slightly. And the way to keep your coffee tasting its best, the way to make sure that it's meeting its potential, the way to make sure that it's as good as it can be every single time is with careful measurement, and that is weighing out your beans and weighing out your shots. Now, most home baristas lean towards a ristretto style of espresso. That is one of the simplest formulas for espresso out there. It is a basic 1-to-2 ratio. So for whatever weight of beans you're putting in, you're gonna want 2 times that in weight for your yield of espresso. So for example, if we had 17 grams of ground espresso in our portafilter, we're gonna be weighing out to be about 34 grams of espresso into our cup. Now, the timing of that formula for most thermoblock machines like a Breville Bambino, Casa Brews machines, most DeLonghi's, on and on and on, it seems to taste the best at about 25 to 30 seconds time to meet that extraction. So 17 or 18 grams in the portafilter, 34 to 36 grams out into your cup, and the time it should take should be about 25 to 30 seconds from that first drop. You might find you like your shots to run a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. You might find you like a faster shot, a slower shot. Anyway, these initial parameters, the ristretto parameters, should get you in business. If you're new to espresso and it sounds overly complicated, don't worry, it's not. It's just that the first time you hear it, it sounds a little more complicated. It's just weighing out your beans, weighing out how much espresso is coming out of the machine, and timing your shots. Now, to do all that and to make sure your espresso is as good as it can be, the one tool you absolutely need is a scale. Now, for years and years and years, Acaia has been the king of coffee scales, and there's a good reason for that. They've been around for probably a decade at least now, and they are the people who really got this whole coffee scale thing popularized. Back before home espresso was really a fad or really booming as it is now, the people who really needed scales were people who worked behind the bar in cafes. And people would have scales. They'd usually have baking scales or commercial use scales. They weren't terribly accurate. They were a little bit finicky. They weren't, basically, they just weren't designed for dealing with hot, wet stuff and being small and fitting on the tray of an espresso bar. They were just meant for weighing out flour and junk like that. So Acaia came in and they saw a niche. They developed something that people really wanted. A scale that was compact, heat resistant, water resistant, very, very accurate, and on top of all that, they added in a few bells and whistles, like making it rechargeable and also throwing in a timer. This really changed the game. I know as a barista who is, baristing in the early 2010s, there weren't a lot of scales around, and if you were weighing out your beans, if you were measuring things out, That was a big deal. It was a lot of visual measurements back then and taste testing. So when these scales came out, they created a stir, and they were totally worth it. We're talking about a $200 scale at the time. Really, really, really mind-blowing, a big investment, but definitely helped improve cafes everywhere. No question about that. So Acaia came in and they made that innovation. They did that. Now home espresso has really boomed since then, and there's still a lot of people who are very, very, very faithful to Acaia. It is a great brand, but their lowest cost scale is about $150, and you're looking at a espresso scale. Their cheapest espresso scale, meaning a scale that is small and designed for fitting on the drip tray of an espresso machine, is starting, I think, at about 220. Let's double check. Yes. So their espresso focus scale, their cheapest one, is about $220. So a pretty big chunk of change. Now, why are they so expensive? Some people might argue you pay for what you get, and I would say maybe you do. But I would also say that Acaia is designed initially for commercial use. It is designed for espresso bars. It is designed for people who are going to be weighing out beans and weighing out shots over and over again, dozens of times a day, sometimes hundreds of times a day. And I doubt that you and I, who are making espresso at home, are doing that. I'd say usually I'm doing it once or twice a day, maybe 5 times tops. I don't need to go through that wear and tear on a scale. So if I could afford it, yeah, I'd love an Acaia, but maybe like you, I just really can't make that investment right now. So I started hunting around for a less expensive scale, and there's hundreds of those as well. The field is booming, people are making scales everywhere, and anyway, I tried a few. I've found some that are too big and too awkward. I've found some that are small but flimsy, and after going through a couple of them, I've settled on trying out this MH3W Bomber. Just kind of tried it out. I've seen the brand around and I wanted to see if it was any good. Hey, right here, just kind of in the middle, I just want to mention that I do have an affiliate link to this scale. If you want to buy it, you could do it through that link and support the channel. Helps me out a lot, helps me get gear to review, and helps me keep going. Thank you. So what do we really need when we're talking about a scale for espresso use? We need something that's relatively resistant against water and heat. We need something that is relatively accurate within reason. We also would like some bells and whistles, like we'd like it to be rechargeable, and we'd also like it to hopefully have a timer. That just makes things really, really easy if you don't have an espresso machine that has a timer on the display. For me, this little guy here checks all the boxes when it comes to a lower end, inexpensive home espresso scale. Number one, it is small. With 2 sizes, and take off the little silicone pad here, it's measuring in at 4.1 inches both ways. So it is a very small scale. They have one more size that is a little bit bigger, a little bit more appropriate for pour over size. That's, I think, coming in at 4.8 inches. Yeah, that's coming in at 4.8 inches. But this little guy here is coming in tiny, just over 4 inches on both sides. It's just the right size to fit on a little Bambino or a little DeLonghi ECP 3630. It is just great. Another thing that I like about it compared to other scales that I've played around with is that the weighing mechanism isn't through the bottom of the scale. This is not something most of us think about, but a lot of home kitchen scales will sense weight by the feet. This guy instead has a flat base, and then it's going to sense weight about what is being put on top. So even if your base, whatever you're putting it on, isn't completely flat, isn't completely level, even as long as your base is relatively stable, I'm going to grab a little Bambino drip tray right here. As long as your base is relatively stable, even if there's little bumps and holes and stuff, as long as it's relatively flat, it's going to be able to sense what's going on. Though I doubt this thing is 100% waterproof, it is pretty durable. And of course I've got an espresso on it quite a few times. Of course I've spilt water on it, and I've just wiped it off and I've had no trouble so far over about 4 months of use. It comes with a nice little silicone pad here, and this is pretty standard with most scales. And it keeps it from getting too hot on the top there. So you just keep that there just so you don't want any real hot liquids on there. If you're doing pour overs, that'd be more a problem than espresso, small amount. Espresso, when it's going into a cup, it's getting cooled down relatively quickly. But anyway, you're going to want to use this little silicone pad, and it has embossed in it a portafilter, which looks pretty cool. That's on the back side for some reason. But anyway, it's probably on the back side so it doesn't get all crusty and yucky when you're cleaning it. It is rechargeable, and the battery life is great. Since getting this about 4 months ago, I've charged it twice, used it most days, and still no problems here. So hopefully that keeps up. I'm happy with the battery life. I'm happy with the rechargeable nature of it. There we go. It has some funny functions, like you can have it so that it makes noises, or you can have it so it doesn't. So anyway, you also have an on and off switch in the back. Maybe that's for long-term storage. And it has a on-off switch on the front, which is the kind of touch-sensitive version. You have two forms of measurement on here, both grams and ounces, which is nice. I think that by now most of us weigh things out in grams, but you might want to use it occasionally for something else, and you might have a recipe that calls for ounces. It's cool that it covers that as well. As I mentioned, it has a built-in timer that you just have to press the little T and it will start counting down. Works fine. It is just the right size for fitting on an espresso tray. It is also a nice size for weighing and tearing out a bottomless portafilter. And that would probably be my first critique of it. It works well with bottomless portafilters because it's so small, but for a portafilter with spouts, though I can tear out a portafilter with spouts on here, I found it to be a little bit awkward. Speaking of the size, there are some good things and some bad things about the size. Now, if you were going to brew a Chemex, it is too small. The Chemex is going to cover up the front of the display. I don't think that this is a good option if you're going to be brewing with a Chemex. If you were brewing on a smaller vessel, it's a perfectly good size. So this is probably what most people are doing. I think this is good, this is accurate, this is fine. Just keep in mind that if you're doing something bigger, it is a very small scale. Another cool little feature about this guy is that if you put something on it while it's on its standby mode that weighs more than 50 grams, it will just automatically turn itself on. So that's cool. Now, from what I've learned from Amazon reviews, there are some duds out there. It generally is getting about 5 or 4 star ratings, but going through the negatives, there seems to be a few people out there that have gotten ones with faulty batteries or just that are dead on arrival. Of course, that's the minority, but I just want to let you know that that happens. Either way, if you do get a dud, that would be frustrating and annoying, but I'm fairly confident that you could have them switch it out for you. I personally have had no trouble with the battery life and have no trouble with the scale at all, but I have seen that other people have. It's not a perfect scale, but for 40 bucks, I've found the accuracy to be within 0.1 grams, which is great. I found the functionality to be really, really good. I cannot complain about it. So all in all, if you are looking for an inexpensive entry-level espresso scale that is the right size for espresso, this is a good option. One more cool thing, though I'm not sure if it's useful, about the scale is it has smart modes. Now, this is kind of an advanced feature that I think was really ambitious for them to include. I don't know if it's practical. You have to use a certain combination of button pressing and putting things on the scale to activate them. So just to go through that really quick, so there are 2 smart modes. Smart mode for doing a pour over, so you put your container on the scale, then you tear it out. Then you apparently put your brewer on here, you wet your filter, and then you dump the water, and then you tear that out.
Then you double click your power button to enter smart mode. Put your brewer back on here.
Tear that off. You're going to wait for the little droppy drip drop icon to flash. You're going to then start pouring your water, and then it will, at this point, automatically start the timer.
Like I said, that's a lot of steps. I think that if you got used to it, it could be very intuitive and second nature. I just personally haven't gotten used to that. For Espresso Smart Mode, you're going to enter Smart Mode from the beginning. So you're gonna
make sure your scale is just turned on, and then you're gonna double click the power button.
So you're going to put your either dosing cup or portafilter on here. You're going to clear the weight by hitting the power button. Then you're going to add your coffee to that vessel, and then you're going to tear that out with the timer button. Then your little drop indicator is going to flash. After that, you're going to put your scale onto the espresso machine tray, the drip tray. You're going to put your cup on there. It's going to tear itself out, and then you're going to start the extraction.
After you start your extraction, it's going to automatically start the timer as soon as it senses weight. That's a lot of steps. So though I do appreciate that they have a smart mode and the timer is going to automatically start when the coffee starts dripping, I would just rather just hit the timer button to start the timer. I find the smart mode to be, maybe you could get used to those steps and you could get used to the process. To me, that is a cool feature, poorly implemented. Stop. Wait a minute. Julio, get the scale. I just realized that there's a whole better way to use smart mode. It's just that the instructions were horrible. All that thing about tearing out things and recording the weight and, you know, doing multiple steps like that, completely unnecessary. You can just, you know, be it you're making espresso or a pour over, you can weigh your beans, do all that stuff, tear out your portafilter, you know, check your weight after that, and then when you're actually ready to brew, you can just enter smart mode by double clicking the power button, then put whatever vessel you're going to brew into. So if you're making espresso, a cup on there, hit the T to activate the smart mode and to tear out the weight. And as soon as liquid starts hitting it, you're going to get the timer to start automatically. That's simple, that's easy. I don't know why the instructions are so bad. I just literally noticed it while going through those instructions to make this video. So that's a better way to use smart mode. That makes sense. Okay, so that's my little review of this scale. I hope that helps you make your decision. Definitely a relatively accurate, relatively good scale, worth the price, which will be between 40 and 30 bucks, depending on what sale it's on. I've left an affiliate link. You can go through that if you want to buy it and support the channel, help me get more gear to review. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Once again, likes, comments, subscribes, totally appreciated. You guys are the best. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you all have a great one. Hope this helped you out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Coffee stuff, yes.